Over the years, I've been approached by a number of people who've wanted to buy Procom or perhaps represent Procom's interest in its sale. Now, while I appreciate the fact that this is probably very good business practice, it's not something I've really had an interest in pursuing. From time to time, people will ask me, like, what are my goals? What am I shooting for? And I've come up with a way of responding. I mimic the James Bond character and just put my finger up and say, you know, world domination. And another joke we'll say is, you know, labor represents 50% of the world economy. I'm just looking for 1%. With the death of my wife, began to look at my own mortality and the estate planning for the company. My son Kent was working for CIBC in New York City as a research analyst. I had never really talked to him on the topic of taking over the business, and so I reached out to him to inquire to see if he had any interest in doing so. His response was that I'd never mentioned the possibility of doing so he'd never given it any thought, and he would like some time to think it over. A week or so later, Kent got back to me and said he had thought it over, he was interested, but there were going to have to be some conditions. The first was that he wanted to go back to U of T to take his MBA. Not the executive MBA, but the full MBA course. He felt that he needed that business expertise if he was going to make a meaningful contribution to the company. Ken joined sometime thereafter, began participating in our management meetings and attended U of T for the next 2 years. During his 2 years, as I mentioned, he attended our quarterly meetings, and I think it was at the first time that people get a little bit of insight into Kent. We were having beers on the deck of the house after a meeting, and someone came up to him and said, "Well, Kent, you've come to a couple of meetings. Maybe you can share your comments as what are your perceptions of Procom?" And Ken very politely thanked him and appreciate your interest, but nothing to say at this point in time. Not to be undone, they reiterated it and they asked him again, and they asked him again. On the third time, he sort of looked at them and he said, "You know, I'm pretty sure that if you asked my father what he thought, he'd probably tell you flat out. But I'm telling you, when I'm ready to tell you is what I'm going to tell you. Thank you very much." And he walked away. When Kent started working with us, his first challenge was with a money-losing business named Kios. Kios is a company that we acquired by default. We'd been providing services to a company named Kratos, and they couldn't pay their bills, and they owed us a fair amount of money. The solution was to parcel up some assets and transition them over to us. We did so, branded the new company Kios, and went on our way. That company had about 3 lines of business. 2 of the lines of business were very quickly jettisoned. We had no interest. The third line of the business was software, ERP as you might call, for school boards, doing the payroll for school boards. So for a highly unionized environment. And we thought it was profitable. We restructured the company in that regard, started providing services to it, and over a period of a year, turned the company around. It went from being negative to being positive. His next challenge came in Ottawa. With the loss of Nortel, or the bankruptcy of Nortel, I should say, the business in Ottawa was going downhill. Nortel had been one of 2 suppliers, Alcatel being the other one. We weren't doing a lot of work in the federal government, and so the branch manager there, Keith Carter, resigned. Kent went to Ottawa to take over operations and rebuild the branch. As it turned out, it was a multi-year project, but he brought it back to profitability. In parallel to his branch responsibilities, Kent also took on operational responsibilities and financial responsibilities within the company proper. He reorganized the charts of account, restructured the GL codes in accounting, standardizing them for all companies. He introduced change and generally contributed to the overall improvement of the operating environment. As I pointed out earlier, we were growing crazy, and we probably made a lot of mistakes along the way. He more or less cleared the decks and arranged the deck chairs. In Just recently, in the year 2016, we located a branch manager who has now replaced him in Ottawa and freed up his time even more so to focus on his COO, Chief Operating Officer responsibilities.